we were over at Eastland, and I was coming over there, and I knew him from roping and whatnot, and he kind of took me by the lead and said, you need to quit buying them. You have to have interest figured in your break even whenever you're purchasing a load or anything. Mm-hmm. If you don't have your interest built in and you're saying, well, I got the money, it's my money, you're lying to yourself. A lot of people get scared of the market, and I don't blame them. Sometimes I'm one of them. Sometimes I'm like, hey, this is going to blow over. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. But you develop, doing what I do, you develop a gut feeling of where you think the market's going.
Today we have Wesley Wood on, and I'm excited to have him on because being in the ranching and horse business, I'm always curious to how people make that work to make a living out of it, whether it's the horses or the cattle or livestock, whatever it is. And Wesley's done that mainly through running yearlings and trading yearlings and stuff. So we'll get into all that. But Wesley, how did you get started in all that?
Well, I guess it was my second year of college. My parents, they had about 65 acres of oats. That was about knee high come Thanksgiving. And I'd been after my dad. I'm like, hey, I want to buy some yearlings. And anyway, so we did. We partnered 50-50. And
did you have any exposure, know anything about the business then, or you just
zero? Jumped in, and beginner's luck, I guess you might say. The market stayed with us. They were 4 weights coming out of the east. I probably couldn't ever do it again, but lost one like 2 days before shipping after buying them weighing 4 and making them weigh 8 whenever we came off. That's the first time I'd ever made any money. And I was like, man, we got to do this again.
You're hooked.
I was hooked. It's in the blood. So the next year, we did the same thing. And my dad was financing the deal. And but we had our little partnership. We had to pay interest to him. Then we split the gravy on top. And next year turned out 1 load again. The following year turned out 2 loads. And then I found a lease place, and I got it done. It was like 60 acres of cultivation, about 125 acres total. And anyway, so he told me, he said, you need to go get a loan at the bank. And so I got in with Ag Texas Farm Credit. Of course, they had me on a tight leash. I ended up borrowing $20,000 from my parents to go borrow the rest. They was charging me interest, so I was 100% financed. And so every time I would buy a new set, I had to give them a business plan first of all, and then we'd sell those, and then I'd have to start all over and tell them a new business plan, tell them what I was going to do. It was just part of the process. And then so it grew from there, and then I finally got into a revolving line of credit, which opened the doors so that I didn't have to go ask for permission every time I was going to go buy something.
When you started, was it just on wheat? You're just doing like kind of 1 set a year?
At first, it's wheat. Well, actually, it's oats. My dad, he likes oats, mm-hmm. And so that's what we did. It was just one set a year until it grew. And got to become really good friends with the landowner. It was a vacant dairy. That was my first lease, and he ended up leaving it in his will that I had first shot at buying it if his kids ever sold it, and I own it today. So
that's cool. Your first lease place, and you own it.
Yes.
Still.
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah, I had a lease for about 10 years. So that evolved, and then I got in with a good friend of mine, Jason Harlow, and we started trading some feeder cattle, and that deal's really grown. He does a really good job, and
That's what I'm curious about. Like turning cattle out, any cowboy can kind of see how that works, but getting on the computer and trading cattle and being able to judge that board and do all that stuff, that's a whole nother deal. That's almost like you're in the stock market basically.
Exactly. You got to watch the deal and be hedged up, and we provide a service is what we do. I mean, got probably 30 feeding entities we trade cattle to, and if say you call a feed yard and you got one shot, well, they probably don't want to deal with a guy that's got a handful of loads. They want them to go through a broker, so if there's anything wrong, the broker can eat there's risk involved.
Yeah.
And but yeah, so we got into that. So what really expanded my personal operation is going to these loadouts on cattle that we had traded and seeing how other people did it, and taking those certain scenarios and throwing them back into my own operation. I've seen what to do and what not to do. And I've seen some good deals and bad deals. And I on the cattle that I buy that I straighten out there in Stephenville, whenever I sell a load, I want that buyer or that feed yard to come back. I do not want my name on the X list. So we don't want any more cattle from that guy.
Mm-hmm.
They feed like crap. That's a bad rep to have, and it'll ruin you in the long term. So pushing these cattle too hard where it burns them up at home, therefore they will not gain as much in the feed yard. You didn't leave any gravy left on the biscuit, is what it boils down to. And that's the reputation that I want to have.
Yeah.
Just doing honest business.
I heard a guy talking about that before. Is a calf has one good spot, and it doesn't matter when it is in his life. If you kind of just run him on grass his whole life and then take him to the feed yard when he weighs 700, he'll hit that big jump there. Yes. Or you can take him as a three or four weight and feed him hard right there. He'll make a big jump, and then he's just kind of stagnant after that. Is that about how it works?
The cattle that I buy, the sale barns, I really try to buy them with a compensatory gain that I can put it on them quick. And I really do not like buying balling calves. I do buy quite a few actually, but I'd rather buy an old crop calf that has more age on him. He just fits my program better, and he's better for my guys on the health and whatnot, typically, than what we call them fat-sucking calves.
Yeah.
Just got milk on their breath.
Yeah. How did you learn, like y'all started turning them out on oats in the wintertime with your dad, and then got your own place, and then you partnered up with Jason, and then just going on different experiences and seeing different operations, kind of how you learn? Or did you have any like straight mentors that you? Well,
I was in the sale barns and buying them all myself, and good friend of mine, Jeff Bacon, we were over at Eastland, and I was coming over there, and I knew him from roping and whatnot, and he kind of took me by the lead and said, "You need to quit buying them." Because I was buying fat calves because I was trying to make the most per head as I possibly could, but I didn't realize how much weight that those fat calves lose before they go back to gaining.
Mm-hmm.
And he's the one that really taught me how to buy a yearling, is what it boils down to. His cattle feed phenomenal in the feed yards, and he feeds them all the way through. He don't sell any of them. And so that's what really took me to another level. The revolving line of credit, Jeff teaching me how to buy a good one, and just trying to keep everything straight where you or your help is not doctoring half the herd.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the key to our deal. And if they are chronics or something like that, we need to get rid of them one way or another. Get them out of the program. And we all have them. If somebody says they don't have any, they're not being truthful with you. So, but yeah.
So how did that kind of evolve? You got that lease place, and then when you got into that, you got that more credit, and then learned kind of what you were doing, and started doing it more full time. Did you come up with some more country to turn cattle out, or did you have them in a feedlot type environment, or how'd that look?
I've ended up picking up a few more places. They're pretty quick, and it was just
you're putting them out on grass.
Yeah, on grass. Picked up one place that we still use today. It's a lease place. It's got grass traps all over it. We got a trip hopper turned sideways on a wagon, and I got feed troughs down there and pipe and all kinds of stuff that I would scrounge up from auctions and whatnot. And so they'll start at the front, and as the straighter they get, or the more time we have on them, they get all the way to the back of the place. And by the time they get to the back of the place, they're pretty bulletproof.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where that's really helped me a lot. That place is a huge asset. So right now, like on my personal stuff, the cattle come to that place, and then they're liable to go to that first place that I got, because I run a feed wagon over there, a mixture wagon. I put up silage. I farm quite a bit now, and really, if you can't be a farmer, you can't be a cattleman. I mean, a grass farmer, wheat farmer, silage or corn farmer, whatever. You got to have feed,
mm-hmm.
and my idea is to have feed whenever nobody else does, because I can really capitalize on what I'm buying, because I've got all this feed stacked up. And I have an operation in Lingleville, which is northwest of Stephenville. It's the same deal. It's a partnership, and I've got country over there, and we run a feed wagon. We got a world of silage packed up, and we just really try to capitalize whenever mainly the Flint Hills guys get out.
Yeah.
The sell barns, because they really cheapen up then.
Just look for an opportunity.
Yes.
And you're buying, from what I've seen, you're always buying a bigger, better calf. Is that kind of what you stick to?
I try to stick to a 575 weight and up. Steer, bull, and heifer all the way, weighing pretty much all the way to about 750. By a few weighing 8. But if I see that a 750 pound bull is costing the same dollars per head as a 600 pound steer, I'm going to go to the bigger one.
Mm-hmm.
I look back at the dollars per head, and I run virtually they pretty much all make the same dollars per head in the end,
mm-hmm.
whether they're big or little, in my opinion.
How come you stay away from the smaller calves when you're buying them? If you ranch or own land around Meridian, Texas, you need to check out Bosky Feed. They carry everything you need to take care of your animals, from wildlife to cattle. They carry bulk deer feed and can deliver directly to your ranch. Michael also keeps all kinds of equipment for sale out front that you probably need to make your life easier on the ranch. So check out Bosky Feed in Meridian, Texas, and they are processing payments with us at Diversified Payments.
The way I see it, they pretty much make the same dollars per head. So if I buy a bigger one, I can turn more head a year.
Mm-hmm.
And
doesn't take as long.
Exactly. It don't take as long. And, I've got employees and got lots of bills to pay
mm-hmm.
on that end. And the more we can turn, the more profitable we can be, as long as I do the right job on the procurement, the risk management, and getting them traded off.
Mm-hmm. And I know you do several different things throughout between feeding and trading, but as far as you're going to the sale barn and buying a calf, what does that look like? You're buying a 6-7 weight calf, straightening them out. grazing them for a certain amount of time and then selling them or sending them to the feed yard, or how's that? Kind of what's your niche in that part of it?
I don't keep anything. Nothing leaves our place less than 60 days. I think 60 days is a sweet spot. 45 days. There's several programs out there, they'll buy them back from you, supposedly weaned at 45 days. 45 days is not enough, in my opinion, and probably several feed yards' opinion, especially on ball and calves, ranch calves. Sale barn cattle, they straighten out. Once you get them straight, they've already been exposed to a lot of things that ranch calves have not been exposed to. So the cattle that I do feed in the feed yards, my health is really good.
I've never thought about it that way. You know, everybody, you think of a ranch calf not ever getting sick. They're very low maintenance, but thinking about it that way, the sale barn calf's already been exposed, so their immune system's going to be a little stronger.
If I show up to a gal's place and he's bragging about how he has not doctored any, I'm shaking my head. I'm like, oh, here comes a storm. So, but we do everything possible on the vaccination programs. I feel like I got a vaccination program that's with the best of them, and we do everything we can to set them up for the feed yard, whether it's me owning them in the feed yard or a corporate owning them.
Yeah,
or an
so
independent.
After 60 days, you're sending them to the feed yard, whether, like you said, you retain ownership or you're selling them.
Right.
And as far as the business aspect, are those different entities? So you're selling them to yourself, basically?
Well, on my partnership there in Stephenville, the A+ WW deal, we're mainly selling all those to the feed yards. Harlow sells them for me, and on my personal stuff, I've been feeding most of them cattle, and I really know how. I have data on how they feed. The health is good, and so whenever I send some of my personal cattle to the feed yard, stuff that I put together at the sale barns, I set them in at whatever I could have sold them for that day at a delivered price. And so I can look back and keep up with your coulda, shoulda, wouldas.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's a moving target, and the risk management is the key with the levels that we're at. I mean, 290s on the fats. 190 on the fats. That's a lot of guys say it's going to go to $2, but I don't know. Yeah, I hope it does, but which I never thought it'd get to 150 either. So
yeah, and then in the feed yard aspect of it, how does that look? How are you managing that part of it and looking at that?
Well, where I feed most of my cattle at, I have a great relationship with them. I think they're the best in the business, and it's you just turn your money over to them is what it boils down to. You send them a product and try to set them up for success, and they have all the state of the art. From flakers to cowboys, and their health protocol is next to none. And so I lay a lot of trust in them, as well as everybody else that feeds in a feed yard, or even even if you're sending them somebody else to background for you, you got to have a lot of trust. And if there's communication that's involved, and if there's no communication, it's about to be a wreck. And because everybody needs to know what's going on. That's the main deal, is trust and communication. So.
Yeah, you're sending nowadays a bunch of dollars in just one load, up there, and then expecting them to make them do good and take care of them. So would you say that's a huge part of it, is finding the right partner in a feed yard?
Oh yes, 100%. And you bring up partners. We started. I guess I got a couple of partnerships, and the joke on the town is the only ship that sinks is a partnership. I guess I'm extremely blessed because I got some really good partners, and they trust what I do in our program and really don't ask any questions.
Well, I think that's the way. I mean, we've talked about it before. Like, a lot of people look at it like that. The partnership is gonna take away from you or your operation. But if you get the right partnership and you get a partner that has something you don't have, whether that's a skill or some type of knowledge or just money, and you have the skill, I think it's great to partner with somebody.
Our country that you don't have, and and that's been a really great deal. The partnership I have there in Stephenville with the Allens, and we got a great crew over there, and got 2 really good guys, and they bust their ass every day. And of course, I'm not over there all the time because I'm putting out fires here and there and keeping everything going, and I have to spend a great deal amount of time in the office keeping everything straight. That's a job in itself. And but yeah, it's a blast. And some days you're like, man, this is tough, but you just gotta put your feet on the ground and say, how bad do I want it?
Yeah.
And that's been my mentality since I started this deal. How bad do I want it?
Yeah.
And it's a blast. I wouldn't do anything else.
And to stay on the partnership deal, those how we got this started was you called me the other day and you were talking about how Brad was telling you kind of about some business stuff and putting your money in a different spot and how you can do this and that. And I know Jason a little bit. I mean, and he's a businessman also. So how's that helped your operation? Kind of have some mentors that you're partnered with.
It's huge. I look up to a lot of people, and Brad and Jason are 2 of them. And Brad was what got our conversation, you and I's conversation going, was just over maybe trying to do a whole life insurance policy and maybe be able to borrow back against it at a later date at a cheaper interest than what you're paying the bank. And I mean, I haven't got started yet, but it's something that's in my mind that I probably need to get going.
Yeah.
And that's and Jason on the commodities and what on the futures positions and all that, and he's very good on that. And it takes a whole team, and I hope one day that several people will be calling me asking me for advice.
Yeah.
And some do, but I'm always willing to talk to whoever that wants to get in this business at all.
Did you know when you got started, were you looking at it just kind of from a cowboy perspective of, I'll get to go cowboy and create myself a job?
Oh yeah.
But then it turns into a business.
Oh yeah, no doubt. Because my parents are in the dairy business, and I was mixing feed and doctoring calves and all that kind of stuff. And so I was juggling both deals, the cattle business and feeding for my dad. And when I was able to get it all done, but I ain't gonna lie to you, I made some pretty dang good horses straightening out them yearlings out on that wheat or oats at the time, but they also didn't cost $1,500 a round off the get-go. They were about $500. It's a little easier. It was a little easier to go rope one back then, and now since they cost so much, like, hey guys, let's be easy with these things. Get ready to ship some. That's a $2,000 steer we're about to put on the truck.
Yeah, yeah. Even just like my roping calves now, I've always, I never got super good at turning them around like roping. I always like roping fresh calves and jerking them down, and that setup was just better for me, not having to, because I wasn't as fast, I guess, but
right.
I didn't perfect that style, so I always like jerking them down, and now I jerk the hell out of one, and I'm like, oh man.
Hope we didn't shear a leg.
Yeah, which has definitely happened, and you're like, dang, but I mean, it's just part of it, I guess.
They were selling roping calves for $1,000 a head a while back.
Yeah.
I'm like, man.
Just to go
getting
torture.
high. Oh yeah, I remember the first time I gave $410 for a set of roping calves over at Dublin, and they were good.
Mm-hmm.
And heck, the only way I could get out from underneath them, they ended up making some money, but I had to turn them out with a load of yearlings and sell them in, probably 7 or 9 months. I don't know how long it was, but I ended up getting out from underneath them, but I was pretty worried about it. They were pretty, though.
When you got started, what drew you just to the calf, to the yearling deal instead of getting in the mama cow deal?
The country. I don't have the country to run a cow-calf operation. In my area, it's about 10 to 20 acres per unit. And probably needs to be about 15 to 17, but there's some places you can probably run 10. And I didn't have the country to do it, so I was after cash flow to turn over my money as fast as possible, but I also had the most risk. I felt like the most risk involved in the stocker operation.
Mm-hmm.
It's very volatile. It can be violent, and and I did no risk management whenever I first started. I didn't even know what it was, and I started going to the cattle raisers stuff, TSCRA, and the young cattlemen's classes and whatnot, and got exposed to some other operations. And heck, the break-even calculator I still use today is the one that Missy Bonds passed off to me from TC Ranch Management. So, and it's a conservative one, but it's a lot of this deal is all about contacts and trying to learn from your mistakes, because I can sit here and tell you something and it don't sink in till you jump out there and do it and you screw up.
Yeah.
Buy some cattle that you think that weigh 650 and they mash the scales at 750. It can be a humbling experience, and whoever gets cocky in this business will get reprimanded.
Yeah, it's when I got into it, when we bought some land and gonna do something with it. I mean, that's what I had to look at. Like, how can we just, putting 10 cows out here ain't gonna do anything for us, but we could put some calves, straighten some calves out for somebody else, or buy our own, or calve out some, kind of get creative just so you can get involved in it and be an owner instead of working for somebody else.
Right.
And that definitely got me. Was like, the first deal we did turned out super good, and then I tried to make another deal happen, and it went backwards. Yeah, and you always got to deal with Mother Nature also.
Oh, yeah. And in our operation, I feel like we're very good. In my mind, we're very good farmers, and we put up a lot of hay, silage, planted some corn silage for the first time this year, and beginner's luck. I mean, it rained, and it made over 18 tons an acre, and I was expecting 12 and a break even on it at about 10. And that's I just try to stay in a position where if a set of cattle come up that we can capitalize on, we have to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I love it, and I got a good team behind me with a risk management, and they help me astronomically, commodity brokers and whatnot. And I kind of getting off topic here, but I do hedge most all of my cattle, and trying to lock in something, because there's been times whenever me and several others have got behind in this market, and I try to stay on top of it, best of my ability. And whenever we started that partnership there in Stephenville, my partner, he's a class act businessman and put together quite a bit of country, and he said, base hits, that's all we're after. we catch a double every now and then, that's great. He said, if we ever was to get a ball cap with our brand on it, then it'd say base hits on it. And I said, amen. So we've been hitting base hits and trying to catch a double whenever we can. But we miss out on the home runs, grand slams. But
you also miss out on going out of business.
Exactly. Yeah, that's your worst nightmare.
Mm-hmm. I think that happens a lot. Like, nobody wants to think about the long term, and it's all just like, what can we get today or tomorrow, and never, where are we going to be in 5 years or 10 years or 15 years?
Right. And
can we just, like you said, stay in it, cash flow, and just keep kind of growing just a little bit at a time, and then, eventually get to where you want to be.
Yeah, a lot of my deal is I don't go borrow a lot of money to buy equipment and trucks and stuff. We work with what we got, because I don't know if I'm going to be able to afford, however, all the equipment payments, and I try to pay cash for everything. If I don't have it, we're probably not going to buy it unless we just absolutely have to. And just trying to be frugal, you might say.
Yeah. We talked kind of about your grazing operation and buying and feeding. What about the computer side, the trading commodities, trading cattle, and learning all of that industry?
The best way to learn about it is to go get in it, but they have LRPs now, and you can buy an LRP on a set of cattle, and you don't have to pay the margin difference or collect on it until after the cattle have already shipped. So that's really helped a lot of producers on that end. I do some LRP, not all LRP, but because it does get a little bit costly on the price per head that you're willing to put up. And my favorite's pretty much just a straight hedge on the feeder cattle, and stay in the upfront months. And
usually on that hedge, you're locking in your price, so you know how much you're going to make. And if the market goes up, I mean, you just lost. You didn't make that profit. Whoever put the money up did, but you're mitigating your risk.
If the board goes up $1, it runs off 50,000 pound contracts. So if the board goes up $1, that's $500. Runs up $2, $1,000, and therefore, when it goes down, they give you money. But if it goes down, your cattle are worth less, but the commodity count is offset. So you're kind of locked in. You just got to have the money available to pay your margin calls, and that's where a lot of people struggle with, or they don't have a good enough relationship with their bank the banker has to understand, if we're maxed out in the board and we're hedged and the board runs up, we got to have margin money. We got to have it. There's no getting around it. So that's my main tools of keeping a roof over our head. Is the risk management. And there's a lot of good risk management guys out there. And, it's not, you don't have to go very far to find one, or find somebody that has one that they're comfortable with. You just got to be comfortable with them. And got to have a good, honest relationship with them too. And, but yeah, it's fun.
You just got to be able to mitigate going broke and make it kind of stay right there in the middle somewhere.
Right. So, I'll leave on my personal deal. I'll leave some cattle wide open every now and then. And the last 2 or 3 years, it's been good. But, I hope the market stays up as high as it is and goes even higher for the cow-calf guys, but these stockers are cost a lot of money for the stocker guy, and then for the feed yard.
Yeah.
It ties up a pile of money when they're costing approximately $2,000 a head laid into the feed yard.
Yeah.
And
Do you think, like right now, when they're like they are now, high, the cow calf guy, he's getting the best bang for his buck?
Oh yeah, they're happy as they could be. But they've also been getting the butt into the joke for a long time.
Yeah.
So, it really doesn't matter to me if they're high or low, but because the margins are pretty consistent.
That's what I was going to ask you. If you make more money as a stalker when they're lower or when they're higher?
I'm going to get shot for saying this, but it wouldn't bother me to buy cattle that whenever the board's at $2 or cheaper than where we're at now, because it ties up a pile of my money, and then we're paying, not everybody's at about 8.5 to 11% interest. You go to tacking that on, you can have $150 a head tied up in interest.
Yeah,
pretty easy.
That's what I was going to say. Whenever, if the margin stays the same, if you're going to make $100 when they're cheap or $100 when they're high, the real difference is how much are you paying for that $1 million or whatever you're borrowing. That interest is really going to add up if you're borrowing $1 million versus 500,000.
Exactly, and you have to have interest figured in your break even whenever you're purchasing a load or anything. If you don't have your interest built in and you're saying, well, I got the money, it's my money, well, you're lying to yourself, because you could probably put it in the bank and collect about 5%. So interest can fool you, and it can catch up with you. And
that's what I don't know how much you've researched what we talked about the other day, but the infinite banking concept and the whole life insurance and all that. The concept is you're paying interest either way, whether you have all the cash and you're putting it somewhere, that money could have been making interest somewhere. So you got to account for it. Or if you're borrowing interest, obviously you're paying interest to the bank or whoever it is. So you got to account for the opportunity cost of that money somewhere.
You're going to be paying for it one way or another, or collecting it one way or another.
Yeah.
It's just part of doing business. So
I think the whole concept of that too also is another part. Is you go to looking at it, and the first person to get paid out of every deal is the bank. So if you can never get enough put together and you're just the bank, you're
be the bank.
Yeah, to be the bank's the best position.
Yeah, I guarantee.
Then you don't got to worry about everything else.
We are not the bank.
It's hard to get to that position, but it'd be the ultimate goal, I think.
Yeah. No, it's
Did you, when you got started, did you ever think that, like we just talked about, like it starts like, oh, it'd be fun to have some cattle and go doctor them and rope and cowboy a little bit. Did you ever think that you would spend more time in an office setting or on the phone than you would?
Oh my God, make fun of me. Where are you going to, the office? Shoot, I'll trade you.
Yeah.
I can run that squeeze chute just as good as you can.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of paperwork involved, and I'll go through spurts. I'll stay up till extremely late at night catching up on book work, or get up extremely early and get ahead, and it's I do not like being in the office. It's not what I want to do. But it's probably it's right up there with one of the most important parts of our business, is taking care of all the book work.
Yeah.
Invoices coming in on freight bills and feed bills and vaccines and antibiotics and you name it. Everything from water troughs to, there's just there's a lot going on behind the scenes in every stalker operation in my eyes. And I buy cattle every week. So I just stay in. That's another deal about my deal that I think it really helps us, is we stay in all the time. And so
kind of dollar cost average it.
Exactly. And So if I'm buying a load of 700-pound bulls, well, I'll just keep on. We'll buy more than what we need, and we'll have cuts, rollovers. They're good cattle. They were just lighter coming in or whatnot. So we cut them off. We shave off the biggest and the best, and so we don't have to take our excess cattle from shipping that day. We don't just haul them to sell barn just to dump them. We'll just roll them to the next deal. Mm-hmm. And that's
kind of optimize where you're not having to get rid of just some cuts.
Right. And we get rid of cuts too, and that are chronics or whatnot. And we try to stay away from them, but like we said a while ago, everybody ends up with one with a problem or something.
Mm-hmm. What would your advice be to someone that's getting started in the industry?
Ask questions. Get a relationship with a ag bank that understands. They're everywhere. I mean, in the farm credit system, I'm not saying it is what it used to be. Everybody's kind of turning into just a number. But if somebody's going to stay with you, in my eyes, it's probably going to be a farm credit bank at the end of the day. And so,
would you say that's the biggest? One of the biggest is that capital.
Yeah,
having a banker.
Yeah, you got to have somebody that trusts you. And whenever I first started, the guy, my banker, man, he was tight. For example, I guess it was in 2012. I told him we was gonna go buying some more cattle, and he's like, Wesley, there's no grass, there's no hay. Why would you want to be buying anything right now? Looking back, those things made more dollars per head than anything I've ever touched in my life. 250 weight bulls out of the sale barns, and it was great. But I gained his trust later. The bigger we got, and it's all a trust deal, mm-hmm. and just doing what you're going to say you're going to do. And I look at my bank; they're a partner. I don't care how you look at it, and I let my banker know everything, and I wouldn't have it any other way. I tell them the good, the bad, and the ugly, and I don't know if it makes any difference, but I just want to be honest and transparent about all of it.
What's the best financial advice you ever received?
Oh gosh, probably don't spend it until you have it. That's be frugal, be tight. And we don't buy a lot of fancy things, vehicles and whatnot, and but we could, but that's not the way I roll.
Yeah, I think that's. I mean, you can dang sure get into that thinking that these different scenarios are going to pan out and pay off in these big ways, and you just go to living like that, and then expecting something could go wrong.
Expecting it to come, and the cattle don't perform, is expecting to make whatever $100 a head. Well, you can screw off $50 a head pretty quick in this deal. Mm-hmm. So then they're down to 50, and just it's this is a humbling sport, is what it is. So
yeah, I think it's crazy. I mean, you got to deal with Mother Nature, and then also just you're dealing with the Chicago board that anything can change it. Just when the plant burnt down or whatever, it has no real effect that much, but it just crashed it.
I really thought whenever Trump got clipped in the ear the other day on what was it, Saturday? I thought Monday. I was like, this thing's gonna be limit down. Mm-hmm. Well, it wasn't. I was wrong.
Yeah, just any little thing that has nothing to do with what the calf's doing out there on the field, or if people are eating beef or not. It just market can go up and down.
No, it's all over the place, and but I've already said this, but I love what I do. Very blessed to operate the way we do.
Yeah. What do you think the most challenging aspect of ranching is?
Oh gosh. Challenging would be Mother Nature and the Mother Nature in the market. I mean, everything else is pretty easy, even when it's -10 and we got a blizzard coming in. I mean, we can deal with that.
Yeah.
But that's
can't make it rain. The uncontrollables, really.
Exactly. But I try to stay set up for a drought with plenty of feed stacked up. Yeah, I pay interest on it, but I have it, and it's like our savings account.
Mm-hmm.
But
you can, and then when everybody's running one way, you can go the other and get some deals there.
There's been a lot of money made running the opposite direction of everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people get scared of the market, and I don't blame them. Sometimes I'm one of them. Sometimes I'm like, hey, this is going to blow over. Sometimes it does. Sometimes it doesn't. But you develop, doing what I do, you develop a gut feeling of where you think the market's going, or what you can give for a certain weight class of cattle. And if you plug them in the computer and the computer's spitting out red ink, well, you end up going and buying the right set of cattle for that same price that has, say, more age on the cattle and compensatory gain in them. They're thin, they're drawed into. They can turn a break even that's shooting out red to black or blue or whatever color you want it to be pretty quick. And that's the...
Yeah, I think it's Warren Buffett that says, when he's talking about investing, when everybody else is running, walk, and when everybody else is walking, you need to run, which is when everybody else is kind of sitting on their hands, you can go in there and start rolling to them. Yeah. But I mean, also in our industry, you are dealing with an animal and Mother Nature. But if you have the feed already sitting there, I mean, then you can go in there and there's an opportunity. Business owners could use an extra $1,000. You could put it towards a vacation, new equipment, or marketing for your business. Or if you're a horse owner, blow it on them. Right now at Diversified Payments, we're offering $1,000 cash if we can't beat your current credit card processing rate. If your business is doing $20,000 or more a month in credit or debit card sales, fill out the form below and you're going to get either $1,000 in cash or even more in savings with us at Diversified Payments.
But whenever there's an opportunity, you don't want to buy any more cattle than what you and your group can handle. You go to buying too many at once. When I've done it in the past, I've had health trouble.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like I was trying to be greedy, you might say, and buy too many at once. And then we're having heck and with the health, and our team gets frustrated and the dead pit gets full.
Yeah.
So we just try to keep it at a steady flow. And that's just being comfortable with what you do.
Yeah. Trying to stay efficient and you got to have so many guys for this many amount of head, and then you can stretch them too much.
Yeah.
And then it's going to even back out, or you can have too few of cattle and then you're paying too much money for labor. Like
at a feed yard, they're running about 1,000 head per guy. Maybe a few more cattle than that in certain circumstances, but those cattle are straight coming in. And, I was at the feed yard the other day and somebody asked me, well, how many guys how many guys per head are you at? And I told them, and they're like, man, can't believe it takes that many guys to run that many cattle. I'm like, well, shoot, man.
Y'all are doing
They're
all the
not
work.
weaned for 100 days before we get them.
Yeah, y'all are actually having to do some work.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's I've heard somebody explain it that way, that it's kind of just a progression from South and Central Texas. They're just just keep going north, and we, raise them, and then they go to somebody in this area to get them straight,
Exactly.
and then they're just going to keep working their way north. Whether we get them kind of straight, they go to wheat further north, or then go to the feed yard, or straight to the feed yard, however it works.
You don't see very many balling calves come south. I've seen a few, but like you said, they're headed north one way or another.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
What's your favorite restaurant?
I've only been to it a handful of times, but I'm a fan of O'Maline's out at Hyco.
Yeah,
It's pretty good. It's
Yeah.
real good, actually.
we've ate there before. It's pretty good.
Better be ready to pay, but it's worth it.
I like, obviously you can't afford, some people can afford to go somewhere nice like that, but if I'm not going to eat at the house, I can probably cook just as good a steak at the house as a fancy restaurant, but to go get the environment.
Right.
And you're going to pay for it.
Oh, yeah.
I'd rather save up, skip all the little cheap meals and go there every once in a while.
Get a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't eat out much. I got my wife and 3 kids, and she works full time, so we pick the kids up from daycare. Usually everybody's pretty much smoked at the end of the day. But so we don't eat out a lot.
Yeah.
We don't eat out much at all, to be honest. But when we do, I like to go somewhere pretty good.
Are y'all still buying a lot of cattle out of the country and stuff?
Yeah.
If somebody's got some cattle to sell, how do they get a hold of you?
Yeah, just holler at me or message me on Facebook or something like that. And we'll come out there and look at them and do a contract on them and deliver them whenever you see fit to hit your base weight that you would set them at. And typically don't buy like Longhorn crosses and stuff like that. We got to keep them with the English exotic crosses. Pretty much quarter Brahman and less, all the way down to no ear at all, Northerns. So, and they got to be weaned long enough. Typically, they don't always have to be, but like them to be weaned minimum 60 days. Just the same way that I treat my own cattle that we traded the feed.
Yeah. Well, y'all check out Wesley if you got some cattle to sell, or if you have questions about getting in the cattle business and the stalker or feeder business or something like that. He started from the ground up, so he's seen all the situations, so he can probably teach you something. And y'all tune in next time.